We have a last session today called Caring, Sharing, Inspiring Ourselves, How to Maintain Enthusiasm and Inner Strength. And it's an interview with Sister Jayanti. So we are hoping to finish at 4:30 because some people would like to leave on time. And some people may want to just be here for some time. It's fine, but we are aiming to finish at 4:30. So while I introduce you, Sister Jayanti, please could you come onto the stage? So Sister Jayanti is the additional administrative head of the Brahma Kumaris. She's also the director of Brahma Kumaris activities in Europe and the Middle East. And as a spiritual teacher for over 50 years, she has dedicated her life to self-transformation and service to humanity. Sister Jayanti is the Brahma Kumaris NGO representative at the UN in Geneva, and she continues to champion the cooperative role of spiritual organizations in creating a just and peaceful world, bringing spiritual principles to the discussion tables of politicians, economists, business leaders, scientists, and nearly every stakeholder of our time. And Sister Jayanti sees the erosion of spiritual values as the underlying cause of the crisis the world is facing today. And most importantly, for those who've had connections or interactions, I think you would experience immense humility and immense calm. So welcome, Sister Jayanti. Yeah. So we've had a very interesting day and a very inspiring day, and it's a phenomenal gathering of health and social care professionals who've dedicated their life to service, to make a difference. So it's, in a way, it's a celebration of that spirit, isn't it? Of humanity, of compassion, of kindness.
It's very much in tune with the whole concept of Jayanti Foundation, because the intention is to bring spirituality back again into healthcare. So I think that it really was a celebration of that, and all the speakers who shared that, it was very beautiful to hear them all, very hands-on experience of that.
Yes, and I was reflecting on what Professor Wilfred McSherry shared. He said about a hardness and a softness, and in terms of characteristically difference, and how a patient experiences such a person as soon as they come to the bedside. And I was thinking, it's not just the behavior. Spiritually, you would call it vibrations, isn't it? And I wondered if you could just elaborate vibrations to our audience.
It's a word that's come into our language over the last 20 years or so that I'm aware of. And it's an energy. And it emanates actually from our own thoughts and feelings. So we actually generate vibrations. Sometimes people call it a frequency, but we use the word vibrations more because it puts across that idea very easily that it's something that's reaching out and touching others. So for example, as you and I speak together, there's a vibration that's generated between us, and it's one of empathy, and so the interview will go well.
Thank you.
But
You've got extreme kindness as well, and generosity.
But it comes from inside, our thoughts and our feelings, and also our intentions. That also sets up a vibration.
Yes. And I just wanted to understand your role as being a leader of a worldwide organization, and you obviously inspire people with your wisdom and your calm, and often to see that consistently, I think sometimes is quite rare outside, and I presume most people here as well will have that in mind in terms of how do you do it. It is quite You were just saying, and Sister Jayanti was just sharing with me, are people on time? Because I've got a Zoom call to Argentina at 5 o'clock. So, and I said, yeah, I hope they all come on time. So, so if you look at Sister Jayanti's diary, it is non-stop. And it's not just talks, it's decisions, it's connections, it's interactions, it's people. So how do you remain inspired and give that inspiration to people?
I've received so much from the spiritual leaders of our organization that it's very, very deep in my heart that I want to give a return of that. And so I don't count the number of hours. It's many hours a day. But also, Nirmala had shared earlier about following a spiritual discipline. And so I know that early morning meditation helps, and then having time for spiritual study helps. So these are the ways in which you recharge your own inner battery, and as a result of that, you're able to share without becoming depleted yourself. And I think I've had an excellent mentor, Dadi Janki, and I've known her since, I knew her since I was a child, but I wasn't really that interested to learn things. As a child, you just play and enjoy the love and the sweetness around you. But when I started my spiritual journey, again, it was with Dadi Janki. And so then when she came to London, I actually shared a room with her for 40 years. And so that was quite something. And so it was a training from early morning right the way through the day till the night. And then there'd be periods when she was traveling or I was traveling, or we traveled together sometimes. But it was a constant learning. One of the things that came up earlier in the thriving part of the session today was if you're learning all the time, that maintains your enthusiasm. So the recharging of the battery and the deep desire to give a return, but also the constant learning, that's been very, very powerful. And so yes, I've been on the journey for a long time, and I'm still there.
You mentioned the film, and there was one thing in the film which came up. I think one of the doctors there said about I think we don't realize our power, and there is untold influence and untold information that we actually have that we probably are not, we don't understand that untold. And I was just wondering, as part of that journey, were there times when it was revealed, as you went along, in terms of, okay, I am an influencer in some ways? Or was it something you always knew?
No, I didn't. I thought I was a translator for Dadi. And then I was gradually getting feedback because I was continually translating for her for many, many years. And that, of course, that's also part of the training, just understanding and seeing how she responded to people and how she was able to encapsulate ideas and so on. So it was a tremendous source of learning. But I could also see that not only was it that I was translating for Dadi, but then I began to get feedback that some intervention or some comment had helped somebody. And I'd be surprised at first. And then I began to feel that, okay, well, I have to be very careful with what I say, because you can influence people in both ways. You say something and you don't intend to hurt somebody, but it leaves a scar. And they tell you about it 20 years later, maybe. But the other way, that you say something and it inspires them. And that's very encouraging when they tell you about it. But it can, as I say, work in both directions. And so, yes, each one of us is a huge influencer. There was a Harvard experiment that I heard about, and I'll share it very briefly. It was a summer game that they were having for people who had registered for a course, executives. And they had tables where there were 6 people at each table. And the task they were given was to build a city. And they found that, and at each table, everybody was given a certain amount of money, and there was also a community chest, and they could contribute to that. What they found was that there was maybe 10% that generally people were contributing. So they planted an actor, and they told the actor that he had to contribute 20%. So he did that. The 5 other people saw this, and would you believe it? The next group they went to, the people who'd been influenced, they did the same. They contributed 20%, and everybody else did the same. And again, and of course the multiplication of the numbers was one individual definitely has an influence on 125 others. So that's fantastic hope for the future. That if I perform an act of kindness, it's not just that, yes, it's for me, but it also inspires many others.
Yeah, I hope the audience is listening. You're all influencers. And you each one have at least 125 people to influence, automatically, I'm sure. You said about, I think I was just quite interested with what came up about love. And I think Lizzie mentioned divine love. And, so as part of this being a leader and having good role models and, unearthing potential and all those kind of things. So how has divine love, operated in your life?
When I started my spiritual journey through Dadi's conversation with me at that time, and it was like she could feel the pulse. She knew what it is I was looking for without actually me telling her. And she then suggested that I learn to meditate because I didn't really know how to. And so that same evening I started. And that first day I had that experience of myself as that inner being of light. That was very, very powerful. And the second day I was taught about the Supreme Being, the source of all positive attributes. And when I began to meditate, I was very lucky. I had an amazing experience of powerful divine love. And that was a very, very powerful motivation for me to continue studying. And as I journeyed along that first year, I would say, it was really, I was on cloud 9. There was nothing that could pull me down. And people had warned me, it's not easy living in a center, it's going to be very challenging, you're not used to life in India, how are you going to manage? But as I say, I was somewhere up above. The power of divine love was carrying me through so many different experiences, and I didn't find anything difficult at all. And then I was asked to come back to London, to my parents' home. And as soon as that narrative started, I forgot about divine love. And I began to think about all the challenges I would have to face in London. And I had to remind myself, well, divine love has carried me through other things. Maybe it'll help me then also. But so I've seen both experiences when you're really up above and you don't worry about anything. But the other way, then you have to work through all your inner demons and sort things out, and then you again build a connection which is more based on your effort rather than God's grace. I think Lissy mentioned God's grace earlier, so I've had that experience too of God's grace, but then the other side where you really have to be quite determined about practicing certain things yourself so that then you're at a stage where then there's a relationship with the divine which is not just through grace but also your own effort.
Thank you for sharing that very transformative energy, which you then go back to, I presume, when life feels very different at other times. We did hear about self-care and the need for self-care and time and all that. And I think it's drummed into a lot of people that you have to care for yourself when you're caring for others. So it's not the lack of knowledge, of course it's a bit of lack of time. So is it something that we have to reprioritize our understanding of self-care? Is that what is lacking at this point of time? Well, what would you say as a message for healthcare and social care professionals?
It requires discipline for the self, which is not so easy. When I know I have a job to get to, I have patients waiting for me, or I have people waiting for me, whatever it is, there's an external timeline that you have to observe. I won't say deadline, but there's a timeline. And in this case, when it comes to self-care, because it's an inner discipline that you have to adhere to, it's very easy to skip it and say, oh well, not now, not today, tomorrow. And so I think it's that lack of prioritization, definitely, but also it's that lack of giving importance to the self. I know that there are so many other demands that come in the way, and sometimes you think, oh, I'd rather have half an hour more sleep than meditate. And so things like that happen, and so then it slips by the wayside. And what I've found is that even if at times you have to be quite determined with yourself and follow a specific routine, and it is a routine that you have to set for yourself, something that's comfortable for you and isn't going to create more pressure and stress. So I'm not saying that follow a routine and let it be pressure. No, not at all. Find a way that it fits in within your rhythm and it's easy for you to do and it's supportive. And then just be determined to follow it through, because a routine is very helpful when you're trying to bring stability within a life that's very busy. And so something of routine brings that calmness and stability.
I mean, I've been a social worker for about 25 years and worked in the public sector and the NHS and charity. So I think routine is something, yes. It's just that the weekends seem to be quite different from the weekdays. And Monday feels different from Wednesday, and Friday definitely feels miserable. I mean, not miserable, you're kind of, by Wednesday it's miserable, you're waiting for Friday night. And definitely this time of the year, everybody's waiting for that Christmas break, because we just can't. So it's holiday to holiday, and I think somewhere Rachna mentioned that. No, sorry, it was mentioned in the video. And so it is, so yes, it's discipline, it's determination, they're all strong words. But it's also kind of having that self-love, isn't it? And
when you feel benefit from something, then that's a very good incentive to keep going with it. And definitely, yes, it's part of self-love, but I think you should feel the benefit. And if you feel the benefit, then you're going to continue with something. If you don't feel the benefit, then you're going to say, well, why should I bother? And so meditation really does bring immediate benefit. And you feel the difference if you haven't been able to give it time. And so because there's benefit, then you enjoy it. And so, again, you move forward with it. And loving the self is actually not such an easy thing, because you know yourself better than most people know you. And so you know all the challenges that you're facing inside and the weaknesses that you're having to deal with. And so at that moment, it's a very powerful reminder of spirituality, that within every human being there is goodness. And silence, meditation, enables you to connect with that goodness again and again, so that you begin to feel that, yes, when I meditate, then I know that that peace is going to emerge, that love is going to emerge. The values are very consistent. And when I slip up on the meditation and one day goes, it's easier for the next day to go, and so it's a very sweet slide downwards. You lose touch again with those qualities that are within you, and then you begin to doubt yourself, and there isn't that experience of self-love. And so I think that self-love comes after the experience that meditation brings, in which you can see that genuinely there is that goodness, there are those intrinsic values within you, and then you say, yeah, I can love myself.
Yes, thank you for that advice. I just want to take up another topic really, which is more to do with the context of healthcare now, with all the shortages and waiting lists and strikes and all that. And I remember a lot of times you've spoken about gratitude and how gratitude helps looking at reframing things. But I wonder whether now we really have to look at patience as a power, so not just as an endurance quality, but more as a power to ride what's happening within the healthcare, whether there's something in that.
I think patience, but also hope, in the sense that, yes, I can be patient, and again, meditation's a very good, powerful method to develop patience. And in today's world, they don't see patience as a virtue. When you're talking about a list of qualities, I very rarely see people come up with patience because everything has to be top speed. Everything has to be in a rush. You have to get things done instantly. So people don't really connect patience with virtue or power. But yes, you learn to develop that. Before you speak, can I take a moment just to step back? And then instead of reacting, then my response is going to be a more positive response. So patience is such an important thing, even minute to minute, never mind long term. And yes, you need patience. But the other thing that I feel is that a lot of people feel helpless and hopeless, and they look at the statistics. And when I hear the statistics of what the waiting list is and how long you're going to have to wait. And today when Michael was talking about the shortages, now that is a shocking figure. It really is. And so it's so easy to lose hope. But I think it's very important to keep hope alive, because you don't know how things are going to turn, what things are going to change. But if I continue to have hope in the future, because I have hope in humanity, I know that the essence of human beings is of goodness. And so my hope in humanity is that things will work out. We will find a way out of the darkness. And so I think that's another very important factor for those of us who are here today and those who are working within the system.
Yes, and my last question, because I just looked at the time, is in a way Janki Foundation has emerged out of a yogi's vision, Dadi Janki's vision for healthcare. And we heard a lot of beautiful things that over the 25 years that the Janki Foundation has done, and its cooperative spirit of so many people. So what do you see as the ongoing role of Janki Foundation, and what would your message be for the charity?
Actually, it's a very good opportunity for me to thank the chair of Janki Foundation, the former chair of Janki Foundation, who just happens to be sitting behind the chair. So thank you to Sarah, thank you to Neville, but also Bhavna Behan gave her life and breath and bones to Janki Foundation for such a long time. So we are indebted to her also, but the lovely team, a very beautiful team. And so thank you for giving me that opportunity. I was very happy to see the work of Vyasa, and I've actually known many of the people that we were seeing on the screen, and the latest developments in India with Vyasa are tremendous. I'll give you, I don't know the statistics, but Maharashtra is one of the major states of India, and an individual who benefited hugely from the Vyasa process is quite a high level. He's now retired, but he was an oncologist. And he was able to speak to the health authorities in Maharashtra. And so they now have Vyasa being taught in all the medical schools in the largest state in India. I wasn't sure whether Sarah knew about this. Hasn't reached through. Okay, yeah, that is a fact. And if you want statistics, we can arrange for that to come through. So it's amazing the work that it's done. And South Africa, yes, I know Raksha, the sister who is speaking very, very well, and she's a very enthusiastic flag bearer for that in South Africa. So I know that Vyasa is just going to continue because people take so much practical benefit from it. The other publications have also been incredibly powerful and useful. Jan Alco had to leave a little earlier, but I know that all of these publications, some are aimed at practitioners, some are aimed at patients, but whichever side of the fence you're on, and sometimes you could be on both sides of the fence, people have taken enormous benefit. So I see that that's going to just carry on developing. People are taking a lot of benefit from this, and that's going to continue. And I would love to see it being introduced into the NHS in a real big scale, because so many people within the NHS system are now recognizing that morale is an issue, that that passion and compassion is something that people started with, but somehow it gets diluted with all the obstacles and challenges. And so it's time to look at those subjects. So my vision is that it'll reach into the NHS in a very official way so that it's accessible to everyone.
Thank you so much for your time on a busy day. You just spent, listening to many people here. It's really valuable and very fortunate that we could spend this time with you today. Thank you, Jayanti.
Thank you for being part of the team that's pulled all this together. And I know it is a whole team, but it's great that you're here too.